everyone, and welcome to Author Chat with Andrea. I'm your host, Andrea Rose Washington, and I am the indie author of Adelathea, the Elendil series, Ametry's Magic, and my favorite book, Journal. And today I have the immense pleasure of chatting with the amazing comic book author, Moon the Storyteller.
Hey.
She is the writer of the Luna comic book series. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I've been waiting for this. I'm so happy you restarted your interviews because I've been wanting to be a part of it. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you. Oh,
I'm
I'm
trying to
actually
share this video to the groups. And this is so amazing how this works.
I am very happy that you're happy to be here. I love the chance to sit down and talk to individual authors and artists in this industry and figure out how they're doing it, because this is a crazy industry to be in willingly, and we're all just in here killing it. So, for those who may not know you on here,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, I'm brand new. I've been writing all my life, but I'm brand new to the whole writing intentionally and then following up with publishing. So I have a new comic book out now through Concrete Comics, and it's called Luna, the Queen of Mahru. And it's this first series is 6 books, and it's titled The Awakening.
Mm.
So Luna is a very special story to me because this is a story that's been inside of me for a very long time. And I think with, the release of Black Panther, being inspired by Chadwick Boseman, COVID, I was like, this is the time for me to just, sit down and write and finally, unleash the story. So Luna is about, well, do you want the short version or the long version?
Whatever you're willing to tell the people who are watching and
Okay.
listening.
Let me give you the long version because I love it.
Go ahead. I'm here for it.
All right. So it's a futuristic love action adventure. So if you love X-Men, you're going to love Luna. So Luna takes place in the year 10,000. Okay. So humans, they've migrated to other worlds. The heroes of old Earth are gone. So no more Iron Man. Well, we don't have Iron Man anymore, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
No
I do.
more, no more, no Black Panther's gone. Oh, he's gone too. All the heroes are gone. The heroes are gone, So, but the universe has birthed a new generation of superheroes called Energy Keepers. Okay. And Energy Keepers are supposed to keep the peace and balance of the universe. Some have chosen to do that, others have not. Others have rebelled. So you see that kind of clash play out in this comic book. And so the story actually takes place on a planet called Mahru. And millions of people, millions of humans are united under Queen Luna's rulership. And one day she receives a visitor who informs her that, of that she plays a very special role in the future of her planet. And she learns that she has power. She's an energy keeper, and she's the only one that can save her world from an evil threat. So it's a beautiful story. It's a family friendly story. So you can read it with your kids. You can share it with your nieces and nephews. And it's a love story with incredible superpowers. So that's why I love the long story so much, because the long version of it, because it makes me smile every time I say that ending. So that's a little bit about what this project's about.
So you mentioned Black Panther inspired you and you had the time during COVID, but has there been any other people in this industry, whether comic book artists or not, who have inspired you to tell this story? Because as someone who is a writer, we all have stories in our heads, but what was that turning point, or who could have been that turning point? Just like, no, I'm actually putting this down on paper.
I have a lot of inspiration. I have a lot of people that I drew inspiration from, when creating Luna. But the one that's looking at me right now is my son. My son actually is the one that inspired me to see this through. Before we have children, we try different things. They don't work out. But I wanted to give him and leave a legacy for him, to show him that, just we are he may not see he doesn't really see himself,
Mm-hmm.
in the superheroes that we have today. They're all throughout the comic books. There's plenty of superheroes of color in the comic books, but how that doesn't necessarily translate to what we see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
TV are the movies. So this story was inspired by him. Even though it's about a queen, she does, spoiler, she does have children.
Mm-hmm.
And so this story, as it plays out, you'll see that a lot of what she does is for her children. So, and for her people. But yeah, he's the one that really told me, I wanted to see this through for him. But I have other inspirations. Chadwick Boseman was probably the number one inspiration that drove me to pick up my pen, right? And my son was what kept that pen going. Um, his Chadwick's performance was, I don't know why he didn't win that Oscar for Best Actor, but that was just an inspiring performance. And he's had really great roles. I mean, he played Jackie Robinson,
Mm-hmm.
other historic figures, but this fictional character is what really actually motivated me to pick up comic books and start reading, because I never was a comic book, fan. Um, but yeah, and there's other, when I saw Beyonce's Black is King, I know a lot of people discredit her, but I really enjoy that piece of art that she created, along with, the hundreds of other people that was involved in that process. But I really was inspired by Black is King as well. And then of course my childhood inspirations,
Mm-hmm.
Miss Janet,
Mm-hmm.
Whitney, Mariah, and you notice they're all music, because I think music also is something that inspires the soul, So, yeah, yeah.
Just as for anyone who may be watching live, feel free to drop a question in the chat, and we will have Miss Moon answer it for us as well. So what is? Oh, you have a shout out. Great job.
Oh, thank you.
um, what is your writing process? Because you stated you have a child, you have a son. Um, and I from my nephews and from my niece, that's like a full-time job. So I can understand there is a lot that goes into creating a comic, and that's so much more different than writing a book. It's almost like a script, and then you have to do the visuals, and you have to oversee the artwork. And for me, my artwork is just the cover. Like that's all I have to oversee. But for you, it's every page to make sure what you're telling and how you're seeing the story comes to life for people who
Mhm.
are reading it. And
Mhm.
so because you want them to get what you're trying to say,
Mhm.
even if it's just the image. So how does that process work for you? How did you because I know you said you were new to reading comics, so how did you jump into that medium to be able to like create this?
I know, right? Well, for Luna started off as a novel,
Okay.
so but I got bored. In order to really tell this story, I felt like something was missing, and that was the visuals. So with me, getting into the comic book world, being inspired by, of course, Wakanda and Black Panther, I said, let me turn this into a comic book. In the beginning, as you're trying to work with the artist, it is a little rough, because you're trying to get to know each other and each other's styles. And I think that's very important when you are a writer and you're working with other people. You have to learn everybody's styles
Mm-hmm.
and respect their process as well. But essentially, I had this story laid out already. It was just now a matter of turning that into a script, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be real intentional about, okay, in this page one, this panel, this has to happen. This panel, this has to happen. But very early on, I actually learned that the artist does very well when I'm not micromanaging him. So his creativity, as you saw in some of the pages, his artwork, I just let him create.
Mm-hmm.
There's some scenes that I said, you can do whatever you want on this page. You can play it out any way you want, but I just want to be able to say in this last panel on this page, XYZ. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's some scenes that actually have to be very I have to be very specific because I have to get everything in this scene. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
have, this has to hit at this moment. So, but we've been working together for 2 years now, and we know each other very well. And it's kind of, when you're a comic book writer, you have to be mindful of your artist, and the dialogue and stuff. So I write, I create the script, I send it to him, he sends me his sketches. I will say, could you change this one little thing? But for the most part, it's always perfect. And I'm like, I'll give him the go ahead, and he'll do. And he's 3 in 1. He does the sketches, he does the lines, and the ink and the color.
Oh.
So I ain't giving him up. He,
So gatekeep that name.
yeah,
Make
I
sure he doesn't
know.
get too busy for you.
I know. And so he's already gotten busy. Like he's a full-time creator now. When I met him, he was only doing like this on the side. And I
Mhm.
was like, no, this is gonna turn into full-time. But that's my writing process. I'm sure there's other people that it's a little bit more involved, but my process is very simple. However, for those who are writing comic books, or any type of story, I would suggest to do what I did, actually, was to read and learn how to write,
Mhm.
because you can free write all day long. But I think we was talking about in the beginning, there's different story tools that you need to use in order to develop your story. Like, you need to develop your main character, and there's certain things that you have to have a part of that development. You have to develop your supporting characters. You got to have some suspense. You got to have some plot twists in there, right? So, and theme development. So, definitely investing in yourself and making sure you read on how the greats have done it, so you can incorporate that into your work.
That is amazing because I actually tried to write a comic book with a friend, and I had to remove myself from the project because they were on a timeline and I just could not get it. Like, I could not connect it. And it's like, I
Mhm.
have the story idea. I can verbally tell you
Mhm.
what's going to happen, but to get it in the way that needed to be set up for a comic, it did not correlate. And so I commend you on being able to correlate of getting it to connect.
That's where editors come in. Editors, like, I had a really great editor in Lonzo, who's the CEO of Concrete Comics for the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
The second editor I'm working with, his name is Devontae. He's the CEO of Stranded Comics. So I actually have someone to help me, because I'm the same way. I'm like, la la la, just want to write, just want to be free, and I want to say this, I want to do that, I want to show that. And they're like, okay, you have 2 pages to do all that. So what you gonna do? What you gonna say here? So I definitely understand that. But I was fortunate enough to have someone who understood me in the writing process. And so
Mm-hmm.
they helped me kind of bring that out and hone things in. And I just was very blessed with that. But what I still want to see that comic book. I still want to see it.
Um, well, I'll talk to them in a couple years.
We need to get together. We need to get together, because if you have a comic book idea, maybe we can get together and do it together. So
Because I'm gonna need help because getting it visually. Oh, that was just, I could see it in book form. I just could never see it in comic form. It was just, my brain was not connecting that day. Um, but so thank you for telling me the process for working with the artist. But how do you find time to write? Like, do you have like a structured time? Does it come by when you're inspired, or like, do you know every day you wake up at 8 a.m. and you're gonna write for an hour before you do anything else?
No, unfortunately, I wish I had time. I wish I could sit and write all day. But, obviously, I'm a wife, I'm a mother.
Mm-hmm.
So those take precedent. Those are first and foremost. And then on the weekends is when I actually write. And I usually I usually write when everyone's asleep, because I'm not distracted, and I'm not, the creativity can flow. So it's usually late at night, and some nights I find myself writing until like 2 o'clock in the morning, unintentionally. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 2 o'clock, but I'm just writing and just creating, and I'm this story's going in my throat, going through my head. And but yeah, usually it's on the weekends when kind of things are quieted down, and my two guys are asleep. So
Mm-hmm. So do you find yourself more of a pantser or a planner when you come to your stories? Like, is it everything is like when you write and sit down, is it okay, I'm gonna write this scene out because I've already planned it out? Or is it let's see what comes today me today?
So in the beginning when I was planning the story out, it took me, I would say it took me a good few months to actually do the story
Mm-hmm.
because I only wrote when I was inspired to write. And
I've been
now though, because
there.
I know the story and I have the outline, and that's another thing I always encourage people to do is when you before you sit down and write a comic book, you definitely have to have an outline. Like you got to know what's going to be happening in each book, what you want to see, what you want to, what is going to happen in this book, and that way that will guide your writing. So for me at this point, I know what I'm going to write.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of how this character will say this particular thing. Because like if you see the script now for issue 2, I have like in brackets, say something here, but I know the character who needs to be in this scene and I
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to happen in this scene, but I don't know yet how they're going to explain, what this is. So, um, yeah. But yeah, at this point, I do know what's going to happen. So the writing process is a little bit easier. Um, the biggest challenge now is just kind of condensing some of the things, all of that into like 6 books.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if it's going to fit in 6 books or I might have to extend it to 8, but I don't know. I don't
I
know.
mean, I will never say no to an amazing comic book that features an amazing Black queen, like physically, like legitimately a Black queen. So,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, what's the number? What's an extra two? Just a whole bunch of what's an extra two?
I know. She could level up on her powers, like a
Yes,
whole comic book dedicated in all her adventures of, punching people out. So
yeah. So let's just. I'm gonna look for it. Uh, so thank you for sharing that because I like to call myself a planner, but sometimes I'm a pantser and I'm trying to like merge the two. And I know that with everyone it's always different because I have author friends and writer friends who are like, oh, I just sit down and whatever comes, comes, and it always works out. And she's like, oh, isn't it fun to be you? And then it's like I have people who are, I plan every detail and then I sit down and write.
hmm
But do you find yourself handwriting more or do you use electronics? Like, do you use more computer or do you handwrite more?
computer,
Computer?
computer. Yeah, because my time is so limited, I'll go ahead and just put everything in the Google Doc,
Hmm.
that I'm sharing with the editor, and I'll put in and that way he can add his notes as I'm writing. And but yeah, I have to do it in the computer. Mhm.
I'm a little bit more of a paper person. So I end up having to get one of those like digital notebooks because
Mhm.
I was like, I can't carry around 20 notebooks anymore.
Like you did in middle school, your
Yes.
journals.
Yes. I have too many. I was like, I need to break it down. So this is your first idea or first book, comic
Mhm.
book, I should say.
Mhm.
But do you have any others that you have like in your head that just like I'm going to like you're gonna be a powerhouse one day? So like, is there anything
Oh,
else that's coming down the pipeline?
oh, I would love to do more. I would love once this series is over, I would love to start focusing on the children because the children actually is the focus of
Oh,
um I can't really say that, but the children will become more prominent as the
okay.
story continues, and I would love to do a second series based on them.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
because we believe the children are the future. So
literally.
yes. So what has been your experience in this industry so far? Because I can definitely say my experience in the very first couple of years was atrocious, mostly because I didn't know what I was doing. So it was just like I was flying by the seat of my pants until like I got a handle and I started meeting people. I was like, okay, I was doing everything wrong because I didn't know what I was doing. So like my first 3 years of writing was terrible, only just because
Oh.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Mhm.
But what about you? What has been your experience in this indie comic book author world?
It's been really great. um because Concrete Comics, especially Lonzo, who's the CEO, he kind of took me under his wing,
Mm.
and he's been a phenomenal mentor. And then there's Anaji, who's also part of the Concrete family. They just really gave me they've been giving me some really great advice, and they've been, kind of shielding me from a lot of the toxicity that could come from this community
Yeah.
sometimes. um and just really motivating me to keep, stay true to my story. Not everyone is going to appreciate the fact that this is about a Black woman.
Mhm.
Even some Black people,
Yeah.
they want to see kind of the male centered superhero action adventure. So, I haven't gotten any negative comments. But I've gotten a few comments like asking, when is the male, antagonist going to show himself and this and that.
Mhm.
And I just have to remind them. I said, I thank you for, sharing the story. Thank you for your constructive criticism, because it does come with constructive criticism. But this is about Luna.
Mhm.
So everything is going to center. She's the center of the story. She's not the sidekick. She's not the wise old woman.
It.
She's the center. So everything is going to unfold from her perspective and her
Point of view.
point of view. Yes. So it's very dialogue driven, very character driven, and the character that's driving it is Luna. So but my experience has been very positive so far. And I'm sure I'm gonna, meet up with some crazies, but my experience has been very positive.
I'm so very glad. Because I think I got started in like 2015. And so during that, I didn't go to conventions. I didn't meet the community. I didn't know all of this was out here. So it brings like so much joy to my heart to know like other people like, oh no, I didn't have to go through that. And I just love it because you're hitting the ground running. You're like going in, you're making your mark, you're opening the door that like took me forever to even find the key. So and I just love that everything now is a lot easier. Even though it was only a couple years ago, it was still like so much has changed in the last couple of years, which is like it's so easy to sort of find our community of
Mhm.
people who are going to support us and give us the constructive criticism. And
Right.
constructive is the key word on that one.
And you doing shows like this helps tremendously, because you saw how much you struggled, some years back, and now you're trying to help, the new and upcoming writers. So what you're doing now is helping a lot of people as well. You're opening the doors to, the network, to other people, so we can network. We're in that chat together.
Hmm.
So you're helping, you're adding to the conversation, and you're helping, tremendously. So I appreciate you.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. So I know that I know you were at VirtuousCon this past February. Was that your first convention there?
That vending, yes. That's my second convention, but that was the first one I actually was a vendor, promoting my comic book. So it was really nice. And I love the fact that I was able to meet other
Mhm.
creatives. Mhm.
VirtuousCon is amazing.
Yeah.
Are you planning on coming to any other conventions in the upcoming year where I can stalk you?
Yes. Um, I'm going to try. There's one in Hagerstown, Maryland, that I
Mhm.
need to kind of get started looking at, and get a booth. That's in April, the end of April. I'm going to the one in DC, Awesome Con.
I'll be
Um,
there. I'm
you
gonna
will
listen.
be?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Meet in person.
Oh, yes, yes. I gotta talk to you about the liability insurance. I don't know nothing about that.
We'll have that conversation offline.
Okay. All right. And then I'm at Baltimore.
Baltimore Comic Con.
Yep, yep. So as soon as I get chunk of money, I'm gonna like get a table. But I think Concrete Comics is going, so I'm gonna try to
Get under their table.
get
In the game.
hold on to that table. Where's my badge?
Ain't no shame in that game. I firmly support that. Get in where you fit in.
Mhm.
So I love it because we're gonna be at a couple cons together this year. I think conventions are a great way for us in our community to meet as well, and just for us to meet fans that we otherwise would never have a chance to come face
Right.
to face with.
Right.
Because there are some people who only buy in person,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll never meet them if they don't see your face.
Right.
Um,
And a
after,
lot of, I feel like a lot more, I can reach a lot more Black women, women of
Mhm.
color, but mainly Black women, because like on the social media channels is mainly the guys,
Yeah.
who's on social media. So I would love to like meet, these little girls and, all, the women that love comic books too.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Because with the way that your character looks, she is beautiful, by the way. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you need to go. I will be posting her link tree in the description of this podcast or the video if you're watching it on YouTube. Um, you need to see what this woman looks like. Luna is beautiful. And I'm gonna give it like 2 years before you have someone come into your table cosplaying one of your characters. And I just need you to take
Can't
a photo
wait.
for me. your
The
your
artist.
character is just, she
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
standout, drop dead gorgeous. And I can't wait to see someone come in her like outfit and her hair and just be like, oh my God, you're Luna. I know who that person is.
I tell you, the artist, I ain't gonna give him up. And he's in my prayers every day, to keep him safe. Please keep him safe. Please keep his hands safe. I mean, I just gave him a character description and he came back with that. I'm just like, whoa, this is, and actually, true story. That picture, that cover, the pink of her, just Luna in all her royal attire. That is the picture that attracted Concrete Comics.
Ooh.
They came into my DMs. It was like, who is this? Who is this? And I was like, that's Luna. Let me tell you. Let me tell you about her. And so that art, I'm telling you, artwork, don't sleep on a good artist, because once you find an artist that understands your vision, they can take your work to a whole nother level. So I know that I'm just going to try to, utilize him now before he starts working for these, larger companies. So
Well, hopefully we're gonna pray that he don't go nowhere, that he stays with you. Like, look, I can work for you, but she has to come. Always have to help her. I always have to do this.
I hope he feels that way.
Because it is a unique talent bringing a character to life. I did a couple character prints for some of the people from my book, and I just know my artist hated me, even though he's one of my friends. I just know he hated me because I
Why?
cannot describe what I want. I can show you what I want. And so like
Mhm.
I'm an avid Sims player. So I'll like make little options of them on Sims. And then like I'll find like other people that look similar to what I'm looking for. And I'll just like, here, figure out what I want from this. Because even though I can describe stuff in a book and I can write something, I can write an entire story out. Visually, my characters, it's just impossible for me to like explain what I see in my head when I visualize them.
Mhm.
And that it is a unique talent for an artist to be able to pull out of your
Mhm.
head what you're trying to say.
Mhm. Yeah.
When you find a good one, I love the guy who did mine, and I'm going to keep him forever. And even though he's mad at me, I'll just like give him stuff. Please don't go nowhere. Um, because it is a unique talent to visually show people what is in your head, what is in
Mhm.
someone else's head.
Mhm. Yeah, and you definitely have to be open. Like, I never imagined Luna will have, look like that. Like I know she had blonde hair. I know she had chocolate skin, but when I was dreaming about her all these years, she never had a face. So when he showed me her picture, I was like, oh, so this is what she looks like. So definitely, be open, to that artist's interpretation of your character, because everybody's going to have their own interpretation of that character.
That is very true.
And, unless you're the artist, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
I
yeah.
did not
And
draw.
thank you. I always give him his accolades, and he's so humble and so modest. I'm like, you're so good. You're so good. Thank you so much. He's like, okay, I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I got to do something else.
At least he tells you times, you know?
Yes.
So we are coming near the end of our amazing little chat. If there's anyone still watching, there's a couple people who are still watching live. If you do have a question you would like to ask her, please do so. Now's the time. But I always like to ask this question because, and you'll notice this when you go to conventions, people always ask, what advice would you give them? And I don't really always like that question because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for someone else, because you don't really know where they're at. Because like financially, mentally, professionally, things could be very so differently. And someone can afford a top of the line artist and someone else cannot afford it. So how can they bridge that gap? So I always like to say, instead of me giving you what I did, because that necessarily doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and it doesn't mean it's bad advice. It just means that there's more than one way to get to number 10.
Right.
I like to ask, what advice would you give your past self?
Yeah. Hello. It's me. I would definitely tell my younger self to, go to school, go to college, get a steady job, get a skill, right? Which is what I did. But don't push your dreams to the back burner. Because I'm in my 40s now, and I'm just starting this new journey, right? But had I started this 20 years ago, and just kept writing and kept creating and saw it through, who knows what it would be now. So I would encourage my younger self to, you were right about going to college. You were right about getting that steady job. But why did you give up creating? Why did you give up writing? You should have never done that. You should have always been writing, and you should have always, even if no one read your work, you should have always finished a story, started it and finished that story, So that's what I would tell my younger self is just whatever it is, whether it be painting, art, dancing, don't give that up. You can still do the steady stuff over here, but let that be a means to this over here. And just pursue your passions,
That is amazing advice. That is wonderful advice, because I feel like we're in that unique generation that was pushed to do the steady jobs and to not do anything that wasn't a for sure paycheck. But what harm would have come for just to keep writing, to keep pursuing your love on the side after you had the steadiness? And I love that. I love that advice. That is amazing advice to everyone who is listening. Don't stop your art. Don't stop it.
Right.
You never know what's going to come.
Right.
That is.
Hope I was able to teach the youngins.
Oh, you're teaching the old ones too, right here. Oh, that was amazing. Oh, that's why I love that question, because we never know where someone is in the stage. And I always feel like our past selves could always take a lesson or two. You're so good.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Inspire me as well. Yes.
So sadly, that is all the time that we do have for tonight. I will be posting all of Moon the Storyteller's link information in the bio. So that way, I believe it's her link tree, and you'll be able to get to everything that you need to know about her. Don't miss it. I've been stalking her link tree because Luna is amazing. But don't do it creepily like me. Be a good person. But once again, thank you, Moon, for chatting with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Andrea. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome, because you were amazing. And for everyone else, I am Andrea Rose Washington, and I will chat with you next time.
Bye.